Hello, my friends. It is Friday, May 2nd, 2025, and I would imagine Putin's not happy today. The Ukrainians have hit Crimea and hit it hard. I'm going to talk about what they hit and why they hit it and where they hit it in just a moment. What I'm going to talk about first, though, is just a little bit about what happened day over day. 1,110 Russians off the battlefield, 9 tanks, 5 armored fighting vehicles, 50 artillery systems, 132 vehicles, and fuel tanks. So this number is kind of low. I mean, when we look at it, the average for April was 1210, and that's been low. And the average for May is, well, it's only one day here because you don't count the first day of the month because the first day is the last evening of the last month. And so that's how this will count. So we'll see how this goes, but 1210 is a lot lower than the 1328. So there was some loss of momentum, and it looked like the Russians were starting a new campaign, and then things kind of fizzled. Okay, let's look at Ragnar's dashboard. Engagements keep rising, casualties close to the 7-day average. Tank and drone artillery losses well above average for air defense systems hit. Relatively few strikes on both sides. So what's interesting about, if we look at his dashboard, is in the last couple weeks, here was the Easter truce, and then there's just kind of been this lull since then. There was lots of strikes above that before that. And then just after that, it just kind of fizzled. I don't quite understand why. Okay, on the night of May 2nd, Ukraine repelled a massive Russian drone attack involving 150 strike and decoy UAVs. Air defense successfully shot down 64 and 62 decoys failed to reach their targets. So this is a normal night in Ukraine, right? Massive Russian drone strike on Zaporizhzhia. 1 person killed, 3 injured. There are still people under the debris. It's pretty bad there. Russian strikes hit residential homes, apartment buildings, schools, infrastructure in Zaporizhzhia, according to the regional authorities. Now, this is bad, and I want to show you like a 10-second video from the rubble. Look, just look at this, and look at the lady like trying to go through her things in this apartment building that has just been devastated. This is what the Russian mirror is bringing to Ukraine. This is why Ukrainians are so set against Russia, because they keep doing things like this to civilians. This is an apartment building. This is not military. Again, she's just trying to go through her things to try to find something of value. Yeah, that's where we are. Okay, now I saw this and I thought, wow, this is a first. Russian forces attacked locomotive repair plant in Zaporizhzhia. Among the other things that were hit in Zaporizhzhia was a locomotive repair plant struck by Russian drones overnight, with no casualties reported among staff who were in the shelters. But when I say it's a first, it's like I'm hard-pressed to remember an evening strike by the Russians. I've been doing this for years now, literally years, and I'm hard-pressed to remember an evening strike where they actually went after military objects rather than civilians. Going after civilians in their homes is the definition of a war crime. I mean, it's one of the definitions of a war crime. So at least you could make the argument that maybe the locomotive repair plant was somehow for military purposes. Yeah. Ukraine are absolutely, now this is the big story here, Ukrainians are absolutely hammering Russian positions around Crimea. Okay, let's look at what's going on here. Large-scale drone attack on Crimea. Explosions heard near military bases, air bases. The Ukrainians don't spend their time going after civilian objects. They're trying to hit military objects that are trying to hit them. Okay, one of the documented hits from drone strikes at the Kachka military airfield. In the video, the person repeats, very timely, a phrase loaded with meaning. The occupiers know there will be no safe bases, no quiet rear. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, how about that? So that's the view. Air raid sirens continuously sounding tonight in Russian-occupied Sevastopol as the Crimean Bridge closes. Crimean Bridge was not hit. Like, let's just put that one to rest. There was not strikes, as far as I could tell, anywhere near the Crimean Bridge, but there was a lot of damage in Crimea. Massive attack on Crimea at night. Bavona in Belbek, Kachka, Novofedorivka, Hardvisky, airfields. The attack continues this morning. How'd I do with my pronunciation? You can put that in the comments below. I'm working at it. Dozens of explosions in reported occupied Sevastopol, Crimea. There have been reports about ammunitions depot being hit, secondary detonations resulting from that. And so we'll find out a whole lot more about this tomorrow. Airfields at Novofedorivka, Belbek, Kachka, Hardiski were hit. Explosions echoed in Sevastopol, Simferopol, Zakoi, and flashes and air defense activity reported in the Saki district. Right? Yeah, and so you can actually hear this. I'm going to show you this. That's the Kachka air base. Here's Ukrainian strikes took out what must have been a Russian air defense battery and munition storage not far from the Black Sea Fleet's Kachka air base in Crimea. They're taking out with drones air defense, ironically. Right? New video of the drone strikes on valuable Russian equipment in Crimea, ST-68, Obzbor 3 and Imber radar stations, as well as several launchers of the S-300V air defense system. This was a big, big night. Like, it's hard to stress how big of a night it was. So early, I saw this, and these are 4 different locations. And I saw another map that shows about 7 different locations where the Ukrainians were striking. Now, I want you to understand, this is big. Right? And there are naval drones reportedly involved. I don't know where they struck. I just don't have that information yet. And then we're reading things like this. Ukraine mid-range drones continue to devastate Russian radar and air defense assets. Radar and air defense assets are hit by drones. Isn't that interesting? The video shows strikes against ST-68, Osbor 3. Okay, same kind of stuff. Firms, you can see this from NASA and space, like that the fires are there. NASA satellites show nothing happening at all near Kachka airfield in Crimea. No, it's going down. Russians are saying that 121 air targets are destroyed. As they often say, it's all destroyed. They shot everything down. But that gives you a sense of what actually the scale of this attack, even if you can't believe that they were all shot down. Now, I want you just to listen to this. This is what's going on in Crimea. Like, this is air defense and things hitting. Right? So it's not nothing. This is just one location, and there's a lot going on. Yeah, something just got hit. Okay, there's another. Let me pause that and put this on. There's another confirmed. Crimea is under heavy drone attacks. Explosions and drone interceptions are happening. Russian sources say UAV threat is still active in multiple areas. Air alarms. Yeah, so a lot's going on here. Okay, the mood of Ukrainians this morning after reading about the Bavonva in Crimea. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty happy about this kind of thing. Sure. Okay, let's turn our attention to the battlefield. Across direction, Donetsk region, Russian invaders led 52 assaults. That's a fairly high number given the low number here is only 1,110 casualties. So that's pretty high. Russian forces recently advanced in Sumy Oblast near Liman, Seversk, Pokrovsk, Kharkiv. So they're still pushing, but they're not getting a lot of traction. It appears, and that's partly because of things like drones and that they're assaulting on motorcycles and things along those lines. I'm not going to show the incident here, but that's partly what's going on. Okay, a couple other news items, and then I want to show you some things that are really important about drones. Kyiv court ordered the detention without bail for 2 defense executives from Dnipro plant. These are Ukrainian defense executives for supplying 120,000 defective mortar rounds to the front lines. Like, this is just a new level of evil. Like, military defenders are relying on that, and yeah, suspects are accused of cutting costs at the expense of quality, while military officials overlooked defects. I'm showing you this not because I want to, but because I'm trying to tell you the whole story here, and this is happening. Now, sometimes I get questions about things like this. How many Ukrainian soldiers are being held by Russia? Noel reports around 8,000 Ukrainian soldiers and 2,000 civilians are confirmed to be held by Russia. During exchanges, some returnees were never acknowledged by Russia, meaning that there's still hope for family of the missing. So, I don't know how many total, but there's at least 8,000. There's probably more than that somewhere, but yeah, that's what we know. Okay, Ukraine's Minister of Digital Transformation, Mikhailo Fedorov, says Ukraine now has its own version of the Lancet drone and signal independent guided drones, interceptor drones, lasers, smart munitions, domestic Mavics, short-range electronic warfare systems are already being used on the front lines. I mean, if I was Putin thinking about the parade, I'd be very, very nervous. I'd be very afraid. A little bit more here. This has nothing to do with Ukraine, but Pavel Durov organized a drone show in the sky over Dubai to celebrate 1 billion active Telegram users. Like, look at what's going on here. This is absolutely amazing. It's just stunning what they're doing here. That's just remarkable. And then there's this. What you just saw there, what you just saw in this video was Ukraine's version of the Shahed drone, and it's coming to Russian targets very soon. It's going to be remarkable when they're able to do something about that. It's just they're figuring it out, and they're going to be answering back very soon. I got that video from Greg Terry, by the way. He did a whole segment on this. Okay, Ukrainian drones struck over 160,000 enemy targets over the last 2 months, March and April. So 160,000 enemy targets. Now we're talking about even FPV drones dropping a grenade or that sort of thing, but that's like, if it wasn't for drones, I wonder if the Ukrainians would have been able to sustain this long. Yes, they would have fought, but I mean, it could have. The drones have been a game changer. Okay, last couple of things before we're done. It was on this day. This was posted yesterday on 1941. Hitler's generals visited Moscow to celebrate successes of the past 2 years, in which Germany and Russia partnered to jointly invade Europe. This is just before they actually kind of invaded and turned on the Soviets. Sadly for Stalin, 2 months after his visit, Hitler decided to discard his agreement, invading Russia. This is why Moscow spends millions of dollars every year in propaganda to convince the world that World War II began in 1941, not in 1938. Well, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was actually 1939, and the comment said, even admitting that the war began in 1938 is now a criminal offense in Russia. It's not exactly. So the criminality in Russia is to deny the Nuremberg trials, but the other laws of discrediting the the Russian military could apply in some ways, so that, like, this is loosely interpreted. The spirit of this is correct, even if it's not necessarily something that I would say, yes, that's a very true statement. Okay, last little bit and we'll be done. Dimitro, call sign Did, that means grandpa, that's call sign is grandpa, is a senior sergeant in a self-propelled artillery battery, father of 5, grandfather of 3. Took up arms in February 24, 2022, when the battle for Kyiv began. A physicist in civilian life, he says, quote, "When I joined the military, I realized this is exactly what they taught us in a university." Well, as a professor, I'm glad he was paying attention, and just stay in school, kids. You could use what you learned sometime later in life. All right, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.